Chapter 5 Anne's History. "Do you know," said Anne confidentially, "I've made up my mind to enjoy this drive. It's been my experience that you can nearly always enjoy things if you make up your mind firmly that you will. Of course, you must take it up firmly. I'm not going to think about it back to the asylum while we're having our drive. I'm just going to think about the drive. Oh, look, there's one early wild rose out. Isn't it lovely? Don't you think it must be glad to be a rose? Wouldn't it be nice if roses could talk? I'm sure they could tell us such lovely things. And isn't pink the most bewitching color in the world? I love it, but I can wear it. Red-haired people can wear pink, not even in my imagination. Did you ever know of anything whose hair was red when she was young, but got to be another color when she grew up? No, I didn't know as I ever did, said Marilla mercilessly. And I shouldn't think it likely to happen in your case either. Anne sighed. Well, that is another hope gone. My life is a perfect gravity for buried hopes. That's a sentence I read in a book once, and it's said over to comfort myself whenever I'm disappointed in anything. I don't see where the comforting comes in myself, said Marilla. Why? Because it sounds so nice and romantic, just as if I were a heroine in a book. You know, I am so fond of romantic things, and a graveyard full of buried hopes is about as romantic a thing as one can imagine, isn't it? I'm rather glad I have one. We are going across the Lake of Shining Waters today. We're not going over Barry's Pond, if that's what you mean by your Lake of Shining Waters. We're going to the Shore Road. Shore Road. Sounds nice, said Anne dreamily. Isn't it? Has it sound? Just when you say Shore Road, I saw in a picture in my mind. As quickly as that. And White Sand is a pretty name, too. But I don't like it as well as Avonlea. Avonlea is a lovely name. It sounds like music. How far is it to White Sands? It's 5 miles. And as you're eventually bent on talking, you might as well talk to some purpose by telling me what you know about yourself. Oh, what I know about myself isn't really worth telling, said Anne urgently. If you only let me tell you what I imagine about myself, I think ever so much more interesting. No, I don't want any of your imaginings. Just you stick to bald facts. Begin at the beginning. Where were you from and how old are you? I was 11 last March, said Anne, resigning herself to bald facts with a little sign. And I was born in Borderline, Nova Scotia. My father's name was Walter Shirley, and he was a teacher in the Bolingbroke High School. My mother's name was Bertha Shirley. Aren't Walter and Bertha lovely names? I'm so glad my parents had nice names. It wouldn't be a real disagree to have a better name, well, said Jedediah, wouldn't it? I guess it doesn't matter what a person name is as long as he behaves himself, said Marilla, feeling herself called upon to inculcate a good and useful moral. Well, I don't know. Anne looked thoughtful. I read in a book once that a rose by any other would smell as sweet, but I never been able to believe it. I don't believe a rose would be as nice if it calls a twistly or a slung cabbage. Did you ever go to school? Demanded Marilla, turning the sorrel mare down the short road. Not a great deal. I went a little the last year I stayed with Mrs. Thomas. When I grew up, River, we were so far from a school that I couldn't walk in the winter, and there was a vacation in summer, so I could only go in the spring and fall. But of course, I went while I was at the asylum. I can read pretty well, and I know ever so many pieces of poetry off by heart. The Battle of Hohenline, and Edinburgh after flooding, and Bingen of the Rhine, and most of The Lady of the Lake, and most of the Seasons by James Thomson. Don't you love poetry that gives you a crinkly feeling up and down your back? There is a piece in the Five Reader, The Dawn of Poland, that is just full of thrills. Of course, I wasn't in the fifth reader. I was only in the fourth, but the big girls used to lend me theirs to read. Were those women, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Hammond, good to you? Asked Marilla, looking at out of the corner of her eye. Oh, faltered Anne. Her sensitive little face suddenly flushed scarlet and embarrassment sat on her brow. Oh, they meant to be. I know they meant to be as good and kind as possible. And when people mean to be good to you, you don't mind very much where they're not quite. Always. They had a good deal to worry them, you know. It's very trying to have a drunk husband, you see. And it must be very trying to have twins 3 times in succession, do you think? But I felt sure they meant to be good to me. Marilla asked no more questions. Anne gave herself up to a silent rupture of the short road, and Marilla guided the sorrel abstractly while she pondered deeply. Pity was suddenly stirring in her heart for the child. What a starved, unloved life she had, a little and druggedly, and poverty and neglect. For Marilla was astute enough to read between the lines of Anne's history and divine not the truth. No wonder she had been so delicate at the prospect of a real home. It was a pity she had to be to send back. What if she, Marilla, should indulge Matthew's uncountable wit and let her stay? He was set on it, and the child seemed a nice, teachable little thing. She's got too much to say, thought Marilla, but she might be trained out of at that, and there's nothing rude or slangy what she does said. She's ladylike. It's likely her people were nice folks. The short road was woozy and wild and lonesome. On the right hand, Scroope first, their spirits quite unbroken by long years of tussle with the gruff wild's quick glee. On the left where the step road, sands of cliff, tried the nerves of the people behind her. Down at the base of the cliffs were heaps of short warm rocks or little sandy coves, inlaid with pebbles as with ocean jewels. Beyond lay the sea, shimmering and blue, and it overshadowed the gulls, their pinions flashing silvery in the sunlight. Isn't the sea wonderful? Said Anne, rousing from a long wide-eyed silence. Once, when I lived in Marysville, Mr. Thomas hired an expensive wagon and took us to spend the day at the shore, 10 miles away. I enjoyed every moment of that day, even if I had to look the children all the time. I lived over unhappy dreams for years. But this shore is nicer than the Marysville shore. Aren't those gulls splendid? Would you like to be a gull? I think I would. That is it. If I couldn't be a human girl. Don't you love it to be nice to wake up at sunrise and whoop down over the water away out over that lovely blue all day? and then at night to fly back to someone's nest? Oh, I can just imagine myself doing it. What big house is that just ahead, please? That's the White Sands motel Mr. Kinley runs in the season hasn't begun yet. There are heaps of Americans come out for the summer. They think this shore is just about it. I was afraid it might be Mr. Spencer's place, said Anne mournfully. I wouldn't want to get there. Somehow it will seem like the end of everything.